right. Welcome back to First and Short, your first place to get short bits of college football news and analysis. It is Thursday, November 13th, and I'm Aaron. I'm here with my co-host Mashfik, and today we have a lot on the agenda. Before we get to the agenda, I do want to go ahead and plug in and play. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe. We're on all
We're
those
almost at
platforms.
200. We're almost at 200, Aaron.
Almost. See, we're trying to get there. Get us there. Be the 200th subscriber. Listen to us on your drive into work. And agree with us, don't agree with us, but hey, listen. But yeah, getting back to that agenda, we are going to cover, the latest college football playoff bracket prediction and give our thoughts. And we're going to discuss, week 12, that schedule, give some predictions, and then we're going to do 3 deep dives today. We usually do 2, but there were so many good games on the plate, we had to do 3.
Couldn't choose.
Yep, could not choose. With that being said, Mash, why don't you just go ahead and get us into, the latest college football playoff predictions?
Yep. So the bracket came out Tuesday night. No big change. Well, really no changes 1 through 5. I think that's pretty solid. Those are all good to me. USF has entered the chat. We thought that would happen after the AP poll on Sunday. But you did bring up a good point. James Madison is actually ranked higher than USF. So, why are they maybe not in here? But, maybe the committee is doing some predictive analysis to think that USF will end the season higher than James Madison. So we'll see. Miami's back into the conversation as well. They've taken the lone ACC spot that we keep seeing here. So we'll see. Maybe they think Miami can still win the ACC for that conference. So, and then like one more thing I noticed, the committee seems to really want Texas in the CFP. Aaron, I mean, are there any other 2-loss teams that would look better here that are more deserving?
It's hard to say. If you're looking at how Texas could potentially finish the season, if they finish and you just go on a rampage of just winning against these last competitors, I think they'll be the outright best 2-loss team. I mean, you got Vanderbilt, they beat them head to head, so I guess you can say they're better. I see Utah, they're down the list as one of the teams that's left out. I mean, compared to Texas. Yeah, exactly. Compared to Texas' schedule, I don't think they're better. Then you got USC and Michigan. Again, I mean, good teams. I think they're very deserving to be in the conversations, but if Texas continues to remain as a 2-loss team, it's because they did some incredible damage to these rankings, these polls, and they'll shake up this bracket, for every team that's above them probably if they do so.
Yeah, because they got Georgia this weekend that we'll talk about, Texas A&M at the end of the season. So we forget Ohio State won the Natty with 2 losses last year. So we'll see. I did find it interesting that there's 3 teams from the state of Texas here: Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and Texas. The Lone Star State is about to be a war zone in the month of December if this holds up. What position would just taking a look at the bracket? What position would you want to be in? Would you want to be a first round bye? Would you want to have the playoff first round at home against potentially a lesser opponent? What if you're the team coach or player, whatever, what position would you want to be in?
Sure. So I mean, if you looked at how things turned out last year, it seemed like the teams that didn't have the first round bye and, had that first round game, they came in, they were able to, get comfortable wins, but also stay in the rhythm of playing games. And so, who was it? Notre Dame and Ohio State, they both were teams that had to play in that first round, and they had to, just keep the energy going week to week out. So if I were in this position, I want to avoid Ohio State until the last possible moment. And I think I want to avoid Alabama just because of how hot they are, right? So if I'm playing in that first round bracket, I think I either want to be Texas or Ole Miss. Not saying that any of these teams that have a first round bye is just weak, but I feel like out of the 4, that may be your easiest way to get to a semifinal through Indiana.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're still doubting those guys, huh? Cool. Well, sounds good. Appreciate you know, your analysis on that one. Let's get into some football games. We've got some coming up Friday night. Yeah, Friday night. Aaron, what are you going to be sitting in front of the TV watching?
Yeah, we got some ACC matchups coming on Friday at 7:30. You got Clemson going to number 20 Louisville. So while Clemson's season has gone off the rails, their defense is still only allowing about 19 points per game in their last 5 games. So there's
Mm,
still a heartbeat there. The problem, their offense. They have trouble generating enough points to win, even if their defense is taking care of them on the other side, right? Um, Louisville has won a lot of games because of how disruptive their defensive is, especially at forcing turnovers. So you got, Cade Klubnik. He started his first 4 games of the season with a pick in each game. That could be an issue here. Over the last 4, he's only thrown 1, though. So he's improved a lot, especially with ball
yeah.
security. Yep. So, I mean, the edge here, though, Louisville is able to get points on offense. That's an area that Clemson has been, lacking and struggling with. So I'm gonna have to go with Louisville here. They're gonna win this game, I think.
Yeah, you made a really good point right near the end. I think both defenses are great in their own regard, but one team knows how to score points and the other one doesn't. And one of those, the team that knows how to score, is also at home, in Papa John's land. So I'm gonna pick Louisville for this one. We got one more Friday night game. We got Minnesota at number 8 Oregon playing at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So Oregon's coming off a huge, last second win at Iowa last week. Now they're at home. Minnesota is a pretty bad road team. They're 0-3 in true road games this season. A lot of that is just because they're near the bottom of basically every offensive category. So on offense, they're pretty bad, but on defense, they're average except for one category, which they are actually number 1 in, and that is generating sacks per play. Meaning, of all the plays, yeah, well, they generate 11% sacks per play. So for every 100 plays that the defense is out there, they're getting a sack on 11 over a little over 11 of them. So they're good at that. But that's about it. They're not good on offense. They're not necessarily great on defense. They just got that one thing to hang their hat on. I don't think that'll be enough to take down the Ducks at home. So I got Oregon in this one.
Fair, fair. I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I think Oregon's locked in. They're ready to try to finish the season, as a potential one-loss team. We'll see. I know they're trying to take care of business and make the football playoffs. Saturday, we got Wisconsin. They're going to number 2 Indiana at 12 p.m. So that'll be another good noon game. I don't think I've seen a mismatch in terms of two offenses going against each other all year. Technically not possible, I suppose. You got the number 1 offense in terms of points per game going against the 134th offense in points per game. There's only 136 teams, so that's pretty lopsided in terms of offensive production, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin's offense just can't stay on the field long enough. They're 31% on third down efficiency against an Indiana defense that's a top 5 in the making. They get teams off the field after third down, so it's not going to be a good matchup. I'm going to go Indiana here. Mash, what are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, that mismatch is crazy. How it would be kind of silly not to go with Indiana. I know they had a crazy road game last week, but Kurt Signetti, he's got these boys dialed in. I'm sure they'll be able to take care of business here.
Yep.
All right, moving along. Another 12 p.m. game. South Carolina at number 3, Texas A&M. We called at the beginning of the season, Aaron. We called 2 dark horses. One was Texas Tech, and they've been holding up their end of the bargain. The other one was here, South Carolina, and they've been looking like the pale horse, just dead. Otherwise, if they had kept up their part of the bargain, this could have been a blockbuster game, honestly. Texas A&M, they lead the nation in holding their opponents to a ridiculous 23.6% conversion rate on third down. Less than a quarter of the time they are converting on third down. That's pretty crazy. For an already struggling South Carolina offense, they are 122nd on third down conversions. I'm worried what the time of possession battle is going to look like at the end of this game for South Carolina in this one. We both know how much Lenoris Sellers likes to keep the ball himself, whether it's a scramble or whether it's just a run play. Texas A&M, they've registered 34 sacks this season, which is tied for the national lead, and they average 8.1 tackles for loss per game. So I expect Cassius Howell to constantly be in the Gamecocks backfield here. I think Texas A&M wins pretty convincingly.
Agreed, agreed. Texas A&M, they look like one of the scariest teams, maybe second to Ohio State in my opinion, but yeah, I got them winning pretty comfortably here.
Nice.
Yep. Moving on, we have another noon game. Number 9 Notre Dame at number 22 Pittsburgh. That's going to be a deep dive. We'll talk more about that later. At 3:30, we have number 11 Oklahoma going to Tuscaloosa to face the number 4 ranked Tide nationally at 3:30. Another deep dive. We will not cover it now. We will cover it later.
Stay tuned.
So goodies. We have goodies. Um, Okay, and then at 3:30, you have number 19 Virginia going to Duke. At 3:30, this game will have ACC championship implications. So both Virginia and Duke are in the jumble of being tied for second place in the conference. Pretty much, there's like 5 or 6 teams in that little jumble right now.
Mm-hmm.
Duke, they are 5-4 overall. But I mean, what can I say other than they picked the right games to lose because only one of those was an ACC matchup, right? Um, so they're still able to somehow compete for a conference title. Um, Virginia, they had their disappointing loss to Wake Forest last week after quarterback Chandler Morris, he left the game with a concussion. He was able to come back on the sidelines, in sweats and a warm up in his jersey. And he's questionable for this game. Um, there are reports of him that, he could potentially return to practice today. So there's chances, and they're looking optimistic, that he could return and be ready for this Saturday. I think it's going to be a close game overall between Virginia and Duke. But if Chandler Morris is back, I've got Virginia winning this one.
Mm. Yeah, I was originally going to choose Duke, but I didn't see that about Chandler Morris. If he's back, then I think Virginia's offense will get back to where it was, and they should be able to win this one then.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Appreciate that nugget of info. Let's see what else is going on at 3:30. So NC State, they're going to be at Miami, number 15 Miami at 3:30 p.m. And guess what? We talked about it. Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes, they're back into the CFP conversation. I hate to say that now they have something to play for, but now they have something to play for, right? So in order to stay in this CFP talk, though, they have this tough matchup against NC State, who has beaten Georgia Tech and Virginia. They've beaten all the top teams in the ACC. Who's to say that NC State can't beat this Miami team? Quarterback CJ Bailey for NC State. He's from Miami, so I'm sure he'll be hyped to play in his hometown. This team can score. NC State, the Wolfpack. So if you're Miami, you're going to have to capitalize on offense and make, little to no mistakes, which means Carson Beck, you cannot afford to throw any picks. All right? Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean,
But I think Miami should have enough strength to win this one.
interesting. So, I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, I'm getting a warm fuzzy about this one. I think it's going to be one of those games for Carson Beck, and I think NC State is going to find a way in the end to just ruin Miami's playoff hopes.
And so, yeah, they'll be able to take care of all three of the top ACC teams, huh?
Yep. And somehow, not be able to finish their other games and not be competitive. Like,
Yeah, right.
you got to play a complete season to be considered, the best. But hey,
Yeah.
I think it can happen this Saturday for them. Moving on at 3:30, you have number 21 Iowa going to number 17 USC. I just want to say we're both really impressed by these teams' performances this year. Iowa, they're a 3-loss team, but they played a heck of a game last week. They limited Dante Moore, and Oregon. They brought an explosive offense down to their speed of gameplay. The game, it just came up short in the final drive. We saw that beautiful drive Oregon did, and they made that last second field goal, right? Um, So they're almost there. And then, if you look at the other side of the ball, USC, they still have a slim, glimmer or chance to get into the college football playoffs, but they have a lot of work to do. I'm pleased with how well, Lincoln Riley has really turned this team around this year.
Yeah.
You know, Overall, these are two pretty good teams. The matchup is going to be interesting, but you have, USC's top rated offense in terms of yards per game versus Iowa's defense. They're rated pretty high nationally in terms of points per game allowed and yards per game allowed. Um, the spread, it leans, USC's way about 6.5 points. And I'm gonna have to do the same. I'm gonna lean, more towards USC just because in each of Iowa's in each of Iowa's losses, they've played ranked opponents very closely, but they can't seem to put up as many points on the board as the other team. Um,
Yeah.
I think we see the same result that we see in those losses. They're either going to lose by a field goal, a touchdown, or under that 7 point threshold. Yeah.
So you're saying USC?
Yep, USC.
Yeah.
I got USC on that one.
Yeah, winning a close one. Yeah, I agree. USC. I think it'll be. I don't think it'll be like too close. I don't think like multiple scores, but at least 10 points.
Hmm.
USC offense and Iowa defense. That'll be a good matchup. But USC's defense has very much improved. And Iowa just can't do anything to put points on the board. So
Hmm.
I think USC will win, but I don't think it'll be as close as you mentioned.
Yep.
Cool. So we're moving into the nighttime now. We do have number 10, Texas at UGA at 7:30. That'll be a deep dive that we'll cover later. We got a lot of good stuff for you on that one. UCLA at number 1, Ohio State, another 7:30 game. So for Ohio State, you're the number 1 team in the nation. You have a conference night game. They're favored by almost 33 points. Ohio State fans have to be the most relaxed and carefree group of people this weekend. I just can't see them struggling at any point in this game. There's been very small windows of success we've seen from UCLA and Nico, but I fear for Nico under center. This weekend he's shown a lot of mobility and improvement these last few weeks, but I think that defense for Ohio State is just way too disciplined. And the UCLA offensive line is still not great. I think Ohio State's gonna roll through this game.
Yep. Gonna agree with you there. They're the number 1 team for a reason. I think they'll win pretty comfortably. And then to cap off Saturday night, late at 10:15 p.m. Eastern time, you have TCU going to number 12 BYU. Wow, BYU and Bear, they're a team that's on the bubble right now, in my opinion.
Mhm.
They play a TCU team, late at night, and that can be tough, to put them away because they're a team that can score a lot of points. TCU, I think they're 6-3 on the year, but they've played some competitive games in every game they've played in so far. However, I'm sure, after BYU's first loss to Texas Tech last week, they've licked their wounds, and I expect them to establish some form of dominance, right? I expect them to do that by reestablishing that run game with LJ Martin, and I think they'll dominate this one.
Nice. Yeah, I think I think BYU is gonna have a lot of things to improve on from that Texas Tech, but they're still a decent team. I think they should be able to win this one as well.
Yep.
Cool. So let's go back in time a little bit, back to 12 p.m. Let's do a deep dive on number 9 Notre Dame at number 22 Pitt. So this is the game that College Game Day will be at this weekend. Notre Dame's playoff hopes are kind of on thin ice moving forward from here. They've already got 2 losses on the season. Pitt also has 2 losses, but with the ACC likely getting only 1 bid, their chances are pretty slim. Although they do get to play Georgia Tech and Miami for the last 2 games of the season, so you never really know how they're approaching this game mentally. Are they looking ahead? Are they really focused on Notre Dame here because it doesn't really matter? Who knows? What I do know, though, is that Pitt has a really good run defense. They have the number 3 ranked run defense, and they allow a little over 80 yards per game, so that's pretty good. Notre Dame's main weapon is Jeremiah Love. So my question is, if Pitt is able to stop that run, will they be able to, in turn, take away CJ Carr's ability to get chunk plays, big chunks on play action throws, I mean? So, on offense, Pitt had freshman quarterback Mason Heinschel take over about 5 games ago. And since
Mhm.
then, Pitt's offense has vastly improved. They've seen a huge offensive spark. I did the math. They're averaging 95 more yards per game since he came in 5 games ago. What's the weak spot on Notre Dame's defense? It is their secondary. They're ranked outside the top 85 in passing yards allowed. So I'm going to be looking for Kenny Johnson. He's the leading receiver, wide receiver on Pitt. He's going to carve up that Notre Dame secondary, and he's going to get his average 100, a little over 100 plus yards, per game. I think he'll get it this game as well. Aaron, I mean, to me, it sounds like all the matchups favor Pitt. Um, should we just call this game now?
So yeah, not so fast. You mentioned, Notre Dame, they allow a lot of yards in the secondary. This is true, but they are also a top 5 team in interceptions, and they have a huge positive in the turnover margin.
Hmm.
You know, Inshall, since he's taken over, he's thrown 5 interceptions in those last 5 games. Uh, one or two more in this game, it can really turn it around quickly. So, while Pitt's run defense is excellent, I am sure Kyle Lewis, the linebacker for Pitt, he'll be hunting for Jeremiah Love. And, Notre Dame, they can look to Jadarian Price as well to keep the running backs fresh and keep the offense methodical to turn down the field. Notre Dame, I think they will also need to, keep the more explosive Pitt offense off of the field if they want to have a chance to win this game, right? And with this running back duo, I think they can do that. I think they'll manage to, control time of possession and keep the ball, really in their court in terms of controlling the speed of the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair point. Both of these teams are featuring freshman quarterbacks. Both of these teams' defensive lines, they excel at getting after the quarterback. So I think, like the storyline of this game, one of these quarterbacks is going to look like the freshman this game. I think the safe answer as to who's going to win, I think the safe answer is Notre Dame. But Pitt has had a real resurgence recently with Heinzel, like we said, and they actually have a common opponent that they played earlier this year in Boston College, in which Pitt had a larger margin of victory. So that's what I'm going off of. I think Pitt will win this game.
Hmm. Okay.
Who do you think?
So I don't think Pitt will win this game, but I do think, Notre Dame, even though I think they'll get the win, they won't win by enough to cover that spread. They have an 11.5 point spread. I think the game's going to be much closer than that.
So
Yep.
you think
So
this is our underdog pick of the week then?
absolutely. You brought it
All
up
right.
perfect and perfect timing. Right now, guys, for underdog picks of the week, we're about 5 for 6. So we're trying to get back to 500 with this game. And I think Mash and I are both in agreement that, they're not going to cover that 11.5 point spread. But Mash thinks, Pittsburgh, they're just going to outright win. So we'll see what happens.
Nice. Gonna go
Yeah.
ahead and lock that up. So what else we got?
Okay. Yeah, at 3:30, we got our deep dive SEC matchup. It's a battle. Number 11 Oklahoma going to Tuscaloosa, number 4 Alabama. This game last year, it caused so much heartache for Alabama fans. So for them, it was the nail in the coffin. It pretty much X'd them out of the college football playoff last year. And it made fans feel like, is this the legacy? Is it really gone? Is the dominance really gone? Is, what Saban created and rose up, is it really gone? On the other hand, it was really the only bright spot in the season last year. It was one of Oklahoma's few reasons that fans could smile about joining in the SEC last year. They halfway thought, they proved the point. Okay, maybe we deserve to be here with this, the silver lining in the season, right? If you fast forward to a year from then to today, I think both teams could say that they're extremely happy and they've seen a dramatic turnaround. Um, Alabama, they have gone through a gauntlet of SEC teams, and they're so close to being done with it after this weekend. Just one more win, right? Um, with Oklahoma, hey, we definitely see you this year. You're a team that is on the verge of a playoff berth, right? Potentially, you just have to make a historic run and win 3 very big games coming up, right? Um, with that being said, I'm gonna break down, what are some of the strengths that both teams have had this year to, achieve this level of success. If you look at Oklahoma, I have to immediately point to their defensive front. They're third in the
Hmm.
nation right now in terms of sacks with 33 sacks. If you call out one player on that decent defensive front who's made that impact, you got to point to R. Mason Thomas. Um, he's a guy who studies. We've seen him react to plays before the ball even snaps, and he just causes havoc. So
Hmm.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how he poses against this Alabama offensive front, and to see if he could put some pressure on Ty Simpson. Um, Next, you got John Mateer. He's a very, very mobile quarterback, um, which has been a weak spot for Alabama's defense, to be honest, this year. They've struggled with the mobile dual threat quarterback, and he has about a little under 2,000 yards passing and 300 yards rushing on the season. So he can do both, and it'll be interesting to see what happens this game with that. If you're going to point to any other strength that Oklahoma has, they really only allow about 14.1 points a game. That's seventh in the nation. So they're an incredible defensive unit, and they do some incredible things against top competition and top
Hmm.
offenses. We saw it against Tennessee. Um, yeah. So I mean, Mash, on the other side of the ball, what are some strengths that you've seen Alabama have this year?
Yeah, Alabama has plenty of strengths. That's why they're in the top four, right? But pass defense, they're ranked 10th in the nation, yards allowed. So not many home run balls will be thrown against their way, which we haven't seen from John Mateer, especially after the hand injury. So maybe that strength won't even come to play. So we'll see about that one. Another strength I would say is this offensive line. I mean, you got Caden Proctor playing multiple. He's playing running back, right? It'll be interesting to see who wins the battle in the trenches here, especially on those passing downs when the offensive line has to keep that pocket clean for Ty Simpson. And speaking of Ty Simpson, his clutch leadership. I mean, he's a prime Heisman candidate for good reason. He's been tearing up defenses like surgically. I think this is a great trait that Ty Simpson has, and that Alabama can lean on.
Okay. Yep. I can definitely agree there. In terms of weaknesses for these teams, it seems like they kind of have the same struggle, right? It's been that run game. Alabama, they average the third lowest rush yards per game in the SEC. That's crazy to see Alabama in the bottom tier of a statistic.
Yeah.
They only average about, 111 yards per game. Oklahoma, they're a little better at 137 per game, but they're still in the bottom half. So, I mean, you have to wonder, is this going to be a low to moderate scoring game? Because
Hmm.
both teams, they have, great defenses, but if you can't create an offensive attack that's balanced, I mean, how will you drive the ball down the field? So, it's going to be interesting. The only other weakness that I could potentially point out of either of these two teams could be, the shakiness that we felt about John Mateer since coming off of that hand injury. Um, I will say, it wasn't a huge factor against Tennessee because they found a way to win that weekend. Um, and he's had a week to recoup, so that's more time for it to heal. And he's been able to study this Alabama defense. Um, I think this game is going to be another close one. It feels pretty evenly matched to me. I think the overall outcome of the game will come down to one thing, and to me, it's going to be grit. And one of the most gritty teams in the nation this year has been Alabama. So they will find a way to win every close game like they have been this year. To me, it's characteristics like that of a team that imply, okay, they have a really good chance to win a national championship. So I'm going with the Tide in this one.
Nice. These last three SEC games for Alabama, you had LSU last week, you got Oklahoma here, and then Auburn in a couple weeks. These are very huge defensive kind of matchups for Alabama. I think that out of those three, Oklahoma has the best offense. And I think you can make arguments that Oklahoma's defense is better in certain areas than LSU, but I think with Oklahoma's improved offense, especially the last few weeks, I don't know. I think Oklahoma might get the win here. Maybe. we'll see. We'll see. But that's my official pick.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice.
So, last deep dive of the day. It is our night SEC game. Number 10, Texas at number 5, UGA, playing top 10 matchup in Athens, Georgia. Night game. You know, College Game Day wanted to be here, but they had to pretend that they didn't have an SEC bias. But real ball
Mm,
knowers know.
mhm,
Texas lost to Georgia twice last season, including a close one in overtime in an SEC championship. Aaron, you and I were there for a program with CFP aspirations. Texas being right on the cusp of it. This is a must-win game for them. They've already got their 2 losses. Texas coming off a crucial bye week, giving them, the extra time to rest up, heal nagging injuries, specifically game plan for Georgia's powerful offense, efficient offense, and improving defense. Not great, but improving. Great for them.
mhm,
I saw Michael Taff should be able to play in this game, so that's good for them. Arch Manning, he's been playing his best football recently, honestly, throwing for over 325 yards and 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. He really turned it around after that Mississippi State game a few weeks ago when it got down close to the wire. This Texas offense in general, I think, seems to be, kind of hitting its stride. Ryan Wingo has been awesome for Manning, and he's really reduced the amount of passes that he's been dropping that we saw a lot earlier this season. On the defensive side of the ball for Texas, they've got Anthony Hill. He was just named semifinalist for the Butkus and the Bednarik Awards. That's the best linebacker and defensive player, respectively. So that's definitely a player to look out for. But on the other side, UGA, the home team, their offense is healthy. Their offensive line, excuse me, they're getting healthier. They're able to start leaning on teams now. They're averaging over almost 200 yards per game.
mhm.
UGA has the most highest opponent adjusted efficiency rating in FBS. Not 100% sure what that means. I know that when it comes to efficiency, you're supposed to get a certain amount of yards per down, and so UGA adjusted for their opponent's defense. They're the highest in that. So while Texas has a great defensive and excellent statistic, portfolio, the 2 best offenses that they've played so far has been Ohio State, which was Julian Saint's first game, and Vanderbilt, who was able to score kind of quite a bit near the end. So really 2 really good teams, great athletes on both sides of the ball. I kind of want to boil it down to a couple questions, Aaron. What's Arch gonna have to do to score more points in this night game at Sanford Stadium?
Sure. So I mean, he's gonna have to get started fast and early, right? If we've seen any weakness in this Georgia team, it's getting started early. So he's gonna have to be on point, drive the ball down the field, and break down this secondary as fast as he can. Because once they make their adjustments and get it figured out, you're gonna have to figure out how to maintain a lead if you can get one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna have to do that, mix it up with misdirection. Georgia's a team that's very aggressive, and I saw them, have some flaws with misdirection, especially again in the Alabama game. I feel like Alabama had
Mm-hmm.
so much offensive movement and misdirection, and those are some of the flaws that they had.
You
You
saw,
know,
you saw Arch Manning and Ty Simpson talk, right?
I did not see that.
You
No.
saw there was some tweet about they talk. They're good friends, so they talk to each other. They have common opponents, and they're like, "Hey, what did you?" Stuff like
Oh
that. So
wow.
so they've
No.
they've shared some information this week. Arch Manning beat Oklahoma, Ty Simpson
Hmm.
beat Georgia. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Arch there that like you said, the mobility, right?
Mhm.
He's gonna have to be mobile. They're gonna have to account for him.
Mhm.
That's been kind of UGA's weak point for the last couple of years.
Mhm.
How do you, as a defense, how does UGA's defense account for Arch's mobility?
I mean, you gotta almost replicate a little bit of what you did last year if you can. You gotta get to him. You gotta rattle him and put him under pressure. Make him make some of those throws that don't make sense that you saw earlier in the season. And then, if that doesn't work, you gotta figure out how to keep everything in front. Switch to some more zone play on defense. Ultimately, though, you have to disguise coverages and not let him sit back and just have a clear view of what's going on during the game.
Mm,
But yeah, we're talking a lot about what Arch has to do to, to win this game and be successful. But there's another quarterback on the other side of the ball, who's young, and we've seen him improve and really become a field general, a manager for this Georgia offense, and that's Gunnar Stockton, right? And so, what does Gunnar needs to do in order to beat this highly rated and very athletic defense for Texas?
Yeah, I think uh, so with Colby Young going out a few weeks
Mhm,
ago, I think we've seen a higher usage of the tight ends, and with Texas's defense, predicated on how good their defensive line and their linebackers are, I think the tight end will be really important here as well. Um, Ultimately, with Gunnar Stockton, I mean, over the last, think about his first game and think about his game now, like how much better he is at decision making and how much
mhm.
more confident he seems in like, am I going to throw it? Am I going to run it? Whatever. So I think he's got the brain power now. The game has slowed down for him where he can actually see. I think a lot of it's going to be like, what are the linebackers doing? Are they going to try to stop our 200 yards per game rushing attack? If so, okay, cool. If you're sending men to stop Nate Frazier, I'm going to send Lawson Lucky or Oscar Delp out there. If they
Mhm.
are covering, if the linebackers are covering the tight ends, cool. Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens, we're going to run it down your throat. So I think a lot of this game comes down to Gunnar Stockton's just mental ability. I think, with Arch and Gunnar both being great runners themselves, both teams will have somebody accounted for that. But yeah, I think Gunnar Stockton is just going to come down to him making those good decisions as to what to do with the ball. Um, yeah, do you want to make? I've been doing a lot of talking. Do you want to give a prediction as to who you think will win this one?
It's a night game in Athens. Georgia seems to be Texas's kryptonite, so I'm gonna have to pick the dogs in this one. I think it's gonna be close, but I feel like you said, with Gunner, the way he's grown and he's got his poise, those dogs are gonna find a way to stay alive.
We didn't do this for the other teams, but do you have like a score range, a score prediction?
Um, I can see maybe a 31-24 type vibe, Georgia.
Yeah. Cool, cool.
What
Yeah,
about?
I'm also thinking UGA. I'm thinking it's gonna be like a high 20s to low 20s, like a 27 to 21 type deal. So, either team can possibly win it, but ultimately, I think UGA will be able to take care of business. UGA has an Alabama problem, Texas has a UGA problem. So,
Mhm.
that is our overview of the weekend. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back on Sunday to see how all these teams do. Thank you for watching First and Short. See you guys next time.
Boom. Okay.
Why it hasn't stopped recording? Why?